So you want to make a resin printed clone trooper statue, or maybe a Halo or a Warhammer? Well, let me show you how. Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Luke, and in this video, I'm going to be making a resin printed, painted, airbrushed Commander Colt figurine. I'm going to be doing a lot of hand painting, a lot of airbrushing, some different painting techniques from JT Builds, and we're also going to be talking about this really cool, unique, different base plate thanks to Lumen's workshop. So without further ado, let's go and find some files and then figure out what the hell we're doing. So for this video, I'm going to be actually using some Galactic Armory files. He's kind of sort of the only one who does a lot of these big sort of statued figures. And obviously when it comes to Star Wars or Halo or some Warhammer, Galactic Armory kind of wins every time. So I'm just going to be, for this video, using pose 1. But there's a bunch of other poses you can see here. We've got Darth Vader's, we've got some Halo, we've got an Arbiter, we've got a bunch of other sort of stuff, but I want to go with a clone just because they're sort of universal. They look really sick either way. And I sort of just like that pose of the two DC-17s being held up. There are ones with other arm poses, which I'll probably do in the future, but for this video, we're just going with this one. You'll also see that if everything has been broken down into parts, which is going to make it really easy to paint and also really easy to print. Now, we've also got the base piece. So the whole suit, I will be resin printing, all the head, torso, blah, blah, blah. But for the base, I'm just FDM printed it. It's just, either way, it's going to be too much of a waste of resin. There's no detail on this. You might as well just FDM print it. So we're going to get these put onto the resin printer, and then we'll talk about probably sanding it because there were some probably little bit of issues. And then we're going to be talking about what paints we're going to be using and the airbrushing. All right, so now we're going to talk about the base. Now, with the files, it just comes very plain, very boring. With no texture, no detail, no nothing on it. Now, I have gone through, I've just sanded and filled and then primed it. I haven't wet sanded it because I wanted that rough texture. And then I just sprayed it in some Duplicolor gunmetal just to give it a little bit more color and a little bit more play. I will probably weather this just to make things blend in, obviously. Once we've got the clone fully weathered and stuff, he's not maybe going to match with the base, but I thought I'm just going to leave it at the moment. We can see after we've painted this. But the main thing I want to do is add a little bit of texture using EVA foam and a laser cutter. So this piece is just a very thin sheet of EVA foam. I was given this sheet by Lumen's Workshop. They are a cosplay company here in Australia. I do believe they do worldwide shipping. So if you want to get your hands on some of this after you see what we can do, I will leave a link for that down in the description. So essentially this is just a really thin sheet of EVA foam that has just got a laser cut etched pattern on it. And as you can see on this one is like a rock sort of paved path, which sort of works really perfect for the clone, I felt. So all I did was just go through with some masking tape, add it across the top, and then just cut out the circle because there's like an inner circle, and then cut out the foot pegs, and then just put them on the EVA foam and just cut it out with a pair of scissors so that then it aligns perfectly. So I'm not going to be leaving it this very plain, boring texture. I'm going to go through with some dry brushing, as you can see up the top, just to add a lot more texture and detail. And then I'm also going to be going through with some little shrubs like these ones, just so I can add maybe a little bit of texture. It won't be much, maybe like 1 or 2 shrubs, but it's just to make the base a little bit more interesting. Now the colors I'm going to be using to dry brush this base is, first of all, just a really nice gray. Just lightly going over this on the base first, just to sort of give it a little bit more coloration. As you can see on this test, you kind of get those deeper channels that have been laser cut into a sort of more black, whereas then the top, which has got your gray, kind of gives a good contrast. And then I'm just going through with some brown and some green. These are just dark, like bush sort of ones I felt. And then just dry brushing them over the top as well. Maybe in just little bits and pieces, not over the entire thing, as this is more of a pathway. It's gonna have those sorts of dirt and grime through it, but mostly it's gonna be gray. So massive thank you to Lumen's Workshop for sending me out one of these to give it a shot. And if you've seen on my channel before, I don't ever work with EVA foam. I've never have, this is the first time. And pretty much it's a very, very good plan. This sort of stuff works really well with, say, large Warhammer scenes or Star Wars Squad, like board games, those sorts of things. Maybe not as much for like outfits and stuff. I guess you could do these on some like small side panels or on chest plates, but it's more sort of used for this diorama sort of statued models. And this thing's gonna work really well. Alright, so let's talk about how we painted this guy. So the first thing is, with the whole resin print done, I did not prime this at all. The reason being is because there's so much detail and stuff, there's just no point. So I ended up using some of this Surface Black. So this Surface Black is by SMS. It's just a really good base coat. It is a flat black. I just shot it through the airbrush. Makes it really easy, and because it's through the airbrush, I'm not gonna risk getting dribbles unless I'm a bit stupid. And it's gonna be a lot more uniform and easier to start off than being red. So after that whole thing was first complete, the next thing that we went through is added some gray. Now, obviously a clone is white, but I wanted to try this new technique that I learned from JT Builds while I was down in Melbourne at ArcFest. Now, as you can see, this is the piece that he built. This is a Warhammer statue figurine thing, very similar to an ARC Trooper, where he went through with some dark blue to get the shadow effect. And a great contrast between white is, well, light gray. So this light gray just goes around all of those darker channels. So we say, look at this arm, we want to be going underneath the shoulder, around the bicep, underneath the forearm, around the hand. All those sorts of shadows. Say you were casting a light from this direction, you're wanting to get those shadows. Now, this is a very clever painting technique, and I just wanted to give it a shot through my airbrush, and well, I think it turned out pretty well. Following on from that, I just shot it with some white. So this white goes into those sorts of patches where we didn't put some gray. Maybe it goes over the gray a little bit, but then you start to get a white gray, and then white. So you get sort of 3 colors made out of 2. And this technique, I think, looks really, really good. In the end, I kind of did weather things up and sort of blend things a little more than I should have. But if you do it right, you can get a really, really good effect. So once that whole base was done in white, we start to do the hand painting. So the next thing followed on is, you can see how much different grays there are within Commander Colt. So I did have to do a little bit of combinations of some paints together just to get the right color, but they're really, really simple. So the first color that I used was this medium sea gray by Vallejo, and also some of this blue gray by Vallejo. It's more gray than blue for this, and this is just to give us that sort of little bit of blue hints through it, because it's not super gray and it's not super blue. And yet again, I just taped off areas around the chest, around the forearms, around the shoulder. I did leave the helmet that is hand painted, which we'll talk about later, but then also around the legs and the shins and those areas. Most of it was taped and then airbrushed through, but then I also went through with some hand painting just to touch up the little bits and pieces here and there. And then following on from that is this Bundaberg red color. So for this, I did just do a little bit of taping and mostly hand painting. That's mostly one of the reasons I wanted to do this project, is to practice my hand painting skills, because I suck at it. If you've ever been a part of this channel or seen stuff I've made before, I do big scaled helmets. I don't do little tiny things which need hand painting. So it was a bit of a test. Some things aren't great, but we just added little bits of tape, started taping off, and then hand painting out these Bundaberg ready bits. And then for this red, I ended up using Nocturnal Red. This is just a model color by Vallejo, and then also added a drop of black or so in there. That contrast between the darker and this, I just felt this was a little too light, and I wanted that sort of darker gray tone. And then just doing really light coats over a black or a white or a gray, well, gives that sort of effect. So for the black, I obviously used some black. Then for these browns, I just used a dark umber by Createx, and then also a little bit of black and a little hint of brown. And then for these little patch pieces down at the very, very bottom, it's just some Vallejo Kashiki, I don't know, but it's this sort of paint color. Play around with it, and I think it was also a little bit of mud brown just thrown in there just to add a little bit more dark. And all of this is hand painted. I probably should do another coat of these, but I probably won't. And then obviously the white down the very bottom is just white. Now when doing these sorts of things, you do have to take your time quite a lot. I did slip up here and there with some of the black, but as a first time, I'm pretty happy with it. And the really good thing is with Commander Colt, there's not many colors. Like say if I was doing a 332nd, there'd be some different stories. And then finally, just onto their helmets. So the helmet is all hand painted, and it's just using the same colors, which is that medium sea gray and some of this blue gray mixed together to do this outer back piece. The white is just the white from earlier. The Bundaberg red is just that red that we used on the rest of the suit. And then the black is just hand painted in around the top brim, around the visor and the mount. And then last but not least is now his like backpack piece. Now I can't 100% say this is maybe on Commander Colt. I haven't found any reference images on his back because I haven't looked for them. but it came with the file, and I thought, what's better than using SMS metallics? So I sprayed the whole piece in a gloss black. This is just some automotive black. You can also use some jet black by SMS because it goes really, really well with these metallics, because that's what they recommend. But I just wanted to go with the rattle can. It was just easier to do it that way. So I ended up spraying the whole piece in some SMS metallic. This is their gunmetal, and just sort of give it a uniform overlay. I didn't go super heavy. I wanted some tones of black through there and then tones of gunmetal through there. And then last, I just taped off some areas, this gold piece, this main stripe, and some of the body pieces, and then ended up spraying it in some SMS metallic gold. The gold, I thought, just gave a little bit more texture, and then it's just been dry brushed through with, you guessed it, medium sea gray. I just felt like it was a bit too clean, seeing the rest of the suits a bit more battle damage, and you can see it blends in just a little bit better. And then that's pretty much it to the whole painting job. There isn't really much added to this, which is really, really nice. It just makes it very easy. But it was more of a practicing skill of my airbrushing techniques and my hand painting, because I want to get better at both of them. So the last thing I'll need to do is just glue the whole thing together, add some little bits of detail, and then we'll call it done. And that is the figure complete. This build was quite fun to do. It's maybe not the perfect, most pristine paint job I've ever done, but I did get to learn a bit from airbrushing and a lot of practice in my hand painting skills. But this is definitely a piece that will look really, really good up on a shelf or in a collection of other figures, because they're very similar to the same size as those show side statues. So for Commander Colt not being one of them, I mean, he could blend in. But I hope you guys learned something from this video. I know that I definitely did with my hand painting, but just learning different color combinations or figuring out different shadings and things. But I do have to give a massive, massive thank you to JT Builds, teaching me this technique of those darker shadows and lighter areas, and a massive thank you to Lumen's Workshop for sending me out one of these foam pads just to give them a try on a base plate to see how they sort of look. Because obviously if they're designed mostly for these big model planes for playing Warhammer or Star Wars games, I thought, why not try it on something that's maybe a little bit more my style in statues, figurines, or something with a cosplay helmet. But thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you guys all next week. We have a zombie Captain America helmet coming out, which will definitely be a bit of fun. I'm looking over there. It's going to be a lot of airbrushing, a little bit of Illumoluster, all that sort of fun stuff. So without further ado, let's head to the final result.